just waiting for you to do, to do, to do.
A lot of captains still, knowing all the facts, they're still all about the kill shots, the pictures with the big dead fish.
Social media, man.
Well, but it's ridiculous because all you have to do is take the photo and release the fish. And you caught it. And you can say, look at this giant fish I caught. Like there's one captain who comes to mind that you reminded me of about the guy who's releasing 50s, Captain Joe DiOrio out in the Long Island Sound. He released probably 6 or 7 fish between 40 and 50 pounds last year. And he's doing great things, because he understands that he has to release them in order to have a business in the future. So what would you and other people that are on board with that idea of like, we need to release these big fish, what would you say to captains that are still ignoring all the telltale signs of bad news for the bass population, still killing these big fish just to get the dock photos, What would you say to them?
Keith is sitting right next to me. He'll tell you. We've seen it disappear right before our eyes in Sheepshead Bay. You have to understand, you have to give the people something, perception of something you're going to catch. Hey, Vic, when you come down, you're going to catch that 40-pound. I guarantee you're going to catch that fish. It gets people fishing. Social media has done great things. It's also hurt because people, they have to beat their chest. I was just looking at something on the website. I think it was the Bucktail Boys or something like that. It was a captain trying to make a name for himself, and he was killing fish. He had all-striped bass on his desk. He was keeping fish, and he would catch a big one, throw it back. He got into a lot of trouble about
Johnny
that.
Bucktails.
Johnny Bucktails.
Yeah.
Guys, you got to understand, even if you're releasing fish, there is mortality attached to that. Like I said, if 100 fish released, I released 100 fish and everything. 9 of those fish, 9%, are basically got to be considered dead fish and everything. They die and everything else. The injuries during the fight and everything. Guys using a bunker spoon with a very large hook.
Yeah.
Guys using big treble hooks, gets hit in the face, get hit in the eye and everything. We're trying to be more responsible. And I told Keith in the car, it's a difference now. There's education. I really tried. That's why I stress on fishingunited.com. Educate yourself and everything to enjoy it and everything. Take what you need. Why? Well, I don't want to eat the fish I caught 3 months ago or something like that. You try to put that in perspective. It is also for somebody else. New York State DEC should be teaching people, giving stickers out or something like that. 36-inch ruler. Put little things on the sticker. They're called nudges. A nudge. You know what it is? Guys, you catch a 36-inch fish. Do you know how much meat you get off that? That can feed a family of 4 for 2 meals. Equate it to something like that. We are trying to be responsible. Use circle hooks. Why? Guys, circle hooks are a great tool and everything. It's worked in the Gulf of Mexico for reef fish. You're not going to catch less fish for them. As a matter of fact, once a fish is hooked on a circle hook, the commercial industry has shown you that. They stay on there. They don't get loose and everything. But you don't injure the fish as bad as a J-hook, which might be swallowed. So this is all part of the education which Brooklyn Fishing Club should be doing. But the New York State DEC, they should be educating people itself. That's how you protect yourself. We know better. It's an ignorance thing with these captains and everything else.
Yeah.
The other thing with party boats, I've dealt with that, was you talk about telling people you're going to catch fish. It's very hard. I've been behind the wheel when you run into a school of giant striped bass in the end of the fall and you caught your limit and it's 9 a.m. and you got the rest of the day to kill and you're going to go leave these fish. You get a lot of disgruntled people. And it's hard to regulate that with a lot of people. How do you do it? I don't know. I mean, party boat fishing, you get a lot of people, they want to keep catching fish a lot of times. I'd be nervous running a boat, doing that. But the last few years, I mean, we had a good run. We used to get a good spring and fall run for a long time. But we had bluefish to back up on that.
They've been MIA.
We could leave the fish. We could go, we knew they were down the South Beach or in between the channels or down the East Beach or something like that in the spring or the fall. And, you could find them, you drift, you catch them. And then you always knew that you could go anchor up on 17 or something like that. And, you could chum bluefish for the rest of the day. But if you got no other option, and you're leaving fish, it's like, damn, you got to deal with all these people on deck too. So that's something hard to regulate as a guy running a boat. if you're doing that. That's say they're like the offshore sea bass fishing. Michael would tell me, you go out there, 15 fish,
And then
and then
what?
and then what do? You just steamed out 80 miles. You limit it out. Now what do? That whole sea bass thing, that's a whole nother.
And that actually leads me to my next question: is how do you guys feel that? How do you guys feel the strict sea bass regs that New York State has? How does that negatively impact stripers?
Wait,
The sea bass thing is federal. The problem is that the stock assessments prior to the 2015 benchmark it took that time to basically get the OFL, then the ABC, the ACL, the amount to catch to get up there. The problem was we were being impacted by MREP, which is the Marine Recreational. It's just a poor program accounting fish estimates of fish.
Yeah.
That's what happened with CBIS. CBIS has been whittled away by fictitious estimates.
Yes.
This is the battles I've been having with the DEC. Captain Monty Hawkins, he started it and I picked up on it, and this is what we go back and forth. The program is a disaster. Multi-millions of dollars of taxpayer money, your money has been put into this program. This has been so bad, it's gone to Congress, not once, not twice, but a couple times. It forced Congress to have the National Academy of Science to look at the program. And this is what happened because of sea bass. Sea bass is causing, let me backtrack. Fishery management is, through the use of mismanaging sea bass, is causing impacts on the species. The technical term is called displacement. You are displacing fishermen out of a species which is basically can carry the load for not only for fluke, for striped bass. Do you understand that sea bass is a linchpin because it interacts with sea bass, ling sea bass, it also with fluking? How about blackfish, porgies? We've told the DEC on the federal and the state level, we have these fish out there. Do you know what the fishery managers say now? It's called retrospective. When they look back, yes, we made a mistake. We should have gave you more fish. This is it. There's no accountability on their end. There was a lot more sea bass. We need these sea bass. They have whittled down these bag limits to nothing. We have a size limit which is not appropriate for our area, 15 inches. We have told them that. And you know what they're doing? They're screwing with nature. Sea bass is a very unique fish. It's a reef fish. Has the genes and everything else. Sea bass detect things in their environment. When they're on a reef area, what they do, they detect. That's why the whole thing, they can switch from female to male. They detect something in their environment. It's a trigger. Wait a minute, guys. We're missing fish here. I got to produce. They could switch their sex within a week. All of a sudden, they're going to go into spawning mode and everything like that. Sea bass stock was built. It was in horrendous shape. The stock was basically what they call depleted during the late 90s. We have rebounded. It was one of the most miraculous recoveries with no enforcement. And we rebuilt the stock magically. And because sea bass, if left alone a little, they come back. They're another stock that's very resilient. They come back very quickly and everything like that. We did a great job. They took away our winter fishery, which Keith was involved with. There's famous pictures, which we keep posting with Keith. The Blue Sea, he made a trip and everything else. We have a great winter fishery here. They took that away from us. And now we have a size limit, which is inappropriate. I can tell you something. This is not my opinion. The great Captain Dennis Bogan, who's called the Wreck Master, one of the Bogan family, they used to call it a sea bright sea bass. It's the sea bass, basically from New York and our area and New Jersey. Basically, that fish, how big is it? 8 to 13 inches. You caught a 13-inch fish? Wow, you got a nice sea bass. You might win the pool. They pushed this sea bass. We've done horse trading over the years. To keep season, we keep horse trading up in size. It is wrong, not only for the fishermen, but it's worse for the environment, for the stock itself. You are delaying maturity. When you have a lot of big fish around, no reason to spawn anymore. When you wipe all these fish out, all of a sudden there's a couple sea bass around, the trigger starts. That's how they rebuilt the stock and everything. The stock was still depleted. These fish, an environmental trigger, because they're reef fish. Wait a minute, we got to start producing. They start switching for female and male, spawn, boom. And that's how the recovery. It is the poster child for fishery mismanagement in the Mid-Atlantic Council region. These battles, I've had battles where I was almost dragged out of a meeting. My numbers were right. They never disputed my data I put towards the MRIP. They agreed with me, but yet they wanted to throw me out of the meeting because they know they're wrong.
Wow.
And boats are being sold.
Yeah.
Because you can't go fishing.
And what I was getting to with that question is, I mean, if the sea bass bag was larger, don't you think there would be less pressure on fish like stripers?
That's correct. We've told them this. And the reason why, again, Victor, we're talking about people. What do people do? Fishing behavior. If you have a species that you can catch a bunch of that not only is fun to catch, sea bass is one of the perfect part of it. It's like a whiting, a mackerel. You're there, you got to catch them. The expertise is, the learning curve is not that big with
And
sea
they're
bass.
delicious to eat.
They're one of the best eating fish. I mean, you go to some of the most fancy places in Manhattan. Sea bass is one of the prime species. It's right up there with mahi-mahi.
Yep.
We've told them this. Give us a reasonable, and notice that word I used, not a big, a reasonable bag limit. We fight with them all the time over this. As a matter of fact, we're going to probably have another battle with the DEC this year because we're going to have to change the regs. Our Wave 6, November, December, the bag limit's so small, 7. Jersey has 15 fish at 12 and a half inches. Same thing. You have this disparate of impact negatively. We've told them this. Make it 10 fish. Make it something I won't drive over the bridge. I won't pay 3 tolls. We try to tell them that. It's very hard to do that. And it's very hard to do at the state level because sea bass, basically, the regulations are set at the federal level.
Oh, man. So what's the solution? What can the average New York angler do to fix this?
Very little. We've tried. The New York RFHFA has tried. Within the last year, we've made a couple of strides and everything. Basically, there's a couple of things. The Modern Fish Act, what President Trump has signed and everything, supposedly that will help us down the road and everything, the lesser impact of MRIP. Sea bass is one of the shining examples. The stock is not only in great shape, it's coming off a population update. The word is, it's 50% larger than they thought. It's, again, everything's positive. We want all these things and everything else. The thing is, it's very easy to bring a bag limit down. To bring it back up, it's a very, very slow process. You may get, say, 25% liberalization for the coming year. Wow, 25%. That might buy you back maybe, instead of opening up the end of June, you may get maybe June 1st. You may lower the size maybe 1 inch, and you may pop the bag limit up like 2 fish here and 3 fish here. And guys are just saying, like, that's it from 25% liberalization. It takes time to get a workable set of regulations for the recreational sector. And that's what's hurt the for-hire industry, but it's also hurt bait and tackle shops. People fish less. Hey, they buy less fishing tackle. We've told them this a number of times, but
in the meantime, the guys owning the boats and running the boats are suffering. That's another thing. It's
I was at that meeting with you last winter, and guys were livid. I mean, they were just like, what are we supposed to do with these bags? I mean, the sea bass plays a major role in recreational fishing. It's so much fun to catch. You drop a diamond jig down, you're catching one every time, especially out in Montauk. And who's going to drive all the way out to Montauk to catch sea bass with that bag limit? They'd rather just go to Jersey. So now you've got New York dollars being spent in New Jersey, and it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. We've tried to explain this. It is very hard with the current people you have there, with Michael Frisk, the chair, Jim Gilmore, the head of the DEC. It's very hard for them to change. Their hands are basically tied on. There's only certain regulatory things we could do within state and everything. You got to push back on the federal level. It's going to take some time. The biggest thing, number one, MRIP has been recalibrated. There's things going on. The ACLs, the amount of fish we'll be able to harvest through the ACL to the RHL, the recreational harvest limit, that's going to come up. We're going to see some liberalization there. But again, I tell people, guys, it doesn't happen overnight. And Keith just brought up the same thing. You got party boat owners who'll say, another year of suffering. You're just going to have to figure it out. We tell people and everything else. And what it does, Victor, and I'm looking at you right now, it's a tough thing. I was in Marine Enforcement. I can tell you one thing. It's very hard because people get so disgusted. They don't trust the law. It's like a stop sign. What stop sign? They take what they want and everything else. So it's affecting data coming in. How many fish are actually harvested? We want to know. Hey, Victor, how many fish did you catch? 20 fish. Thank you. Victor, how many fish did you catch? Didn't catch nothing today, but you got 10 fish that you took home. This is the problem. Fishery managers have to try to figure that out. What's going on? They got to put like a fudge number in there and everything else, like, because they know something's going on because people are so disgusted. They do not trust the process. It's failed us. Also, the data collection to the numbers we see are so bad, the mistakes that are made and everything like that. The fishing activity, less people are fishing today and everything. They're talking about the amount of people fishing today is bigger than we had in the 70s and 80s. This is all part of the problem, Victor. That's what I'm saying. This is going to take a lot of time to straighten out. It will not happen overnight. I will not make promises to anybody that this will be fixed within the next 2-3 years.
One thing I found really interesting about that meeting we were at was the two guys that they had there representing whatever. It was guys from the DEC, I think.
Yes, that was Jim Gormo leaving, and it was John Maniscalco. John Maniscalco was the technical person, and he's now the chief of the marine fisheries. He's a very nice man and everything else,
Yeah.
but he's overwhelmed. That's why he was.
That's what it seemed like. And what I'm gathering here is that those two guys, their hands are pretty much tied. I mean,
Correct.
they can't do much. So you've got these two poor guys who are just getting berated by captains and anglers left and right, and it's like they're almost like the scapegoats. They're just put up there as the sacrifice bunt. You know, I mean, they're just standing there taking a verbal lashing from everybody there, but they can't even really do anything. So what's really happening from that meeting? You know, I left that meeting feeling pretty defeated about the whole thing. You know,
That's a great observation, Victor. That meeting, let me tell you something. The DEC, and you have to thank basically John Maniscalco and Jim. They did work. They did work hard because, hey, Rhode Island only had 5 fish in wave 6. We had 7. We had 2 more fish. Oh, what's 2 more fish? It's a big difference. They only had 5 fish. We did something that wasn't done before. We had something where basically we had a set of rules in place. And like you said, wait a minute, we're going to change the rules now. We got something out of it and everything else. And of course, they took a couple of lumps at that meeting. And it wasn't easy for them. They, believe me, both of them were shaking. You saw how rattled they were.
I felt bad for him.
Yeah.
I definitely did. But at the same time, you know, that's what they signed up for, kind of. So,
Like I said,
know.
the buck stopped there for them, and they had to take a lot of heat and everything
did,
like
they
that.
did.
And that's what happens.
and what's up with this Lee Zellman guy that everybody hates so much? What's he doing?
Well, Lee Zeldin is the congressman for the 1st District. He represents, basically, he's one of the congressmen for New York State that talks on Washington.
Yeah.
Lee Zeldin has been incredible. People do not understand. Lee Zeldin is not only, he was only in the military and everything. He is always doing constituent work. Hey, all the dredging projects on the East End, Mauritius, Lee Zeldin got the money, got things done quickly. Modern Fish Act, Lee Zeldin was there for fishermen. He was there for you. He was the guy, all these amendments they put in and everything, Lee Zeldin did it. He was amazing. I wish more politicians who went to Washington were like Lee Zeldin.
So why does everybody hate him so much then?
Well,
All these captains, like one guy at that meeting, he even had like a picture of Lee Zeldin wearing like a dunce cap or something. Like these guys were just going in on him. I mean, what has he done to them? Why can't they recognize that he's trying to help them?
it's ignorance. It's utter ignorance. What he did, number one, Mauritius is a deadly inlet. He not only got the money, they got that dredging project done where they had to reschedule to get the vessels up there to dredge the inlet. I mean, the guy has been amazing. It's just he gets bad press from Long Island Newsday because it's a progressive newspaper. They want progressive candidates, and of course Lee Zeldin is for the Republican Party. He's a friend of the president. He's taking shots, but I could tell you one night now, he picks up the phone, and I tell people one thing: if you can find a politician who will pick up the phone for you, support him. Lee Zeldin has been there for fishermen. He really has.
What about Governor Cuomo? Has he done anything for us?
Governor Cuomo has. He really has. Basically, he's taken a lot of heat and everything else, rightfully so. I mean, he's got a lot of failures along the way, business-wise, but New York fishermen got to remember the artificial reef program, even though it was rushed, guess what? He got the artificial reef program where they're dumping new material, more debris along all the new reefs. They're considering new reefs. So Governor Cuomo stepped up for there. He was there for fluke. He was there for striped bass. He's been around. He's been doing his work as far as the fisheries and everything else. And the biggest thing, which people don't realize, the fluke commercial fluke lawsuit on the allocation issue and everything else. Hey, Governor Cuomo. Governor Cuomo was there for the Summer Flounder Amendment. That was Governor Cuomo. He has been there for fishermen. We can't say he was absentee. He has been there for fishermen. Other issues, yeah, you could take your shots at him, but he's been there for fishermen.
That's good to know. Part of the reason I asked is because on his Instagram bio, it says like a description of himself. It says father, this, that, and it also says fisherman. So it seems like, he is a fisherman himself. You would think that he'd be looking out for us. So that's good to hear.
He is. He's involved. You see him making trips out to Fire Island and Montauk and everything. He has been there and he has been a help and everything. And people shouldn't forget the artificial reef program in New York State, which was DOA. I mean, other states like New Jersey or where Monty is in Maryland have been incredible. He got that started again. We got the debris. We're starting to dump new debris on a number of old reefs. They have a couple of new reefs, which now they're allowed to dump some debris there. So I could take a lot of shots at Governor Cuomo for other things politically, but for fishermen, he stepped up more than I could say than Governor Pataki did.
That's cool. To take a bit of a left turn away from politics and regs, I know you guys have spent thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of hours combined on the water. What are some of the craziest things that you've witnessed?
Well, I was in marine enforcement and everything. I've seen a couple of crazy things with commercial guys and everything else. I don't know. I guess the biggest thing sometime a rescues of people who have health issues on boats. And I think Keith can attest to something, guys having chest pains or something like that.
Yeah, guys jump overboard offshore.
Why?
One guy in particular, he was, he was under the influence, and it was the fall. It was like October. I remember that, and fishing just started to get good, and for some reason or another, he had a confrontation with one of the guys working deck up in the bow. They were rolling around, and we winded up getting him inside the cabin. We tied him up. We started going in. We were getting ready. It happened so quick. We were getting ready to go in. We called Coast Guard to get this guy off the boat, and he had a little pocket knife on him. He cut himself free, and then he just jumped overboard, man. And we winded up getting him, luckily, before he got to the stern. And then we had another similar incident where another guy jumped over. We didn't find the other guy. He winded up getting on a lobster pot. But other than that, crazy. I've had great fishing, that's pretty nuts. I feel like, when you see acres of bluefish, that's pretty crazy stuff. You don't see that every day, like, National Geographic kind of things.
Yeah.
I wasn't around for the heyday of tuna fishing, but, I've heard a lot of good stories about that, giant bluefin and yellowfin. That's kind of crazy stuff in another sense, if you want to say. But
well, I could tell you one story because people know Captain Greg O'Schneagle, and he was a commercial fisherman. Well, we used to commercial fish together, pinhook for blackfish, and we had his one mate, Bradley, on the boat. And one day we went out black fishing. It was a beautiful day. It was a warm weather day in the early fall, and we were having a great day. And Greg we were going to another spot on Scotland, and we run over the spot and says, "Whoa, Greg! Whoa, look at that!" Stops the boat and everything. I'm scribbling down the numbers, and he says, "Let me get back on that." And we still talked about that spot this one day. It was called the Honey Hole. We went there, and some people call it the Hammer. Imagining having blackfish you were catching as fast as porgies, where you would drop the crab down. It was amazing. Like, the fish were there. Well, I've seen some incredible blackfishing in my life, from Massachusetts to Virginia. We have never seen that before. It was some busted up wreck. Just caught. This was not something to look for. It was just watching a bottom machine. I tell people, watch a bottom machine. We had a trip where we had to stop fishing. We had no more room. The blackfishing was the best we've ever seen. And like I said, we still talk about it to this day when we found that one spot. It was just amazing. I tell people, I says, listen, there's lessons to be learned, but one of the lessons is when you're riding along, keep that bottom machine on, keep looking at the bottom, because one day you can ride over something that, like I say, will have a fish story to tell.
Was that spot lost to Sandy?
No, there's been a lot of spots lost to Sandy and Victor, and you bring up lost spots. The problem with lost spots, Sandy may have wiped out a couple of inshore spots. The biggest problem with wrecks disappearing, everybody talks about shipwrecks, is basically the scalping that's going on in the region. These large scalp boats, they've been destroying wrecks. I just found out, we saw it happening before our eyes, was a wreck. We called the offshore Kess. This wreck used to be on 300 feet, found by Richie Kessinger. They actually sent divers down there. They identified it as a 19th century shipwreck. It should have been something historical. Scalpers started beating it up and everything. Captain Joe Kincaid and everything was just out there. The wreck has disappeared. A 300-foot long wreck has disappeared for scalpers. And we've seen this with the Sinmar off of Shinnecock. A wreck used to stick up 14 feet, gone. The cow is just a hard impression on the bottom. People talk about Sandy losing wrecks. Let me tell you something. Offshore, if it wasn't for the World War I and World War II shipwrecks that gone down an area, we'd be in trouble because all these other wrecks are disappearing right before our very eyes.
Everybody says, "What do you think, Steve?" I mean, I haven't been running boats, post Sandy, but the bluefish,
Yeah, well,
how they disappeared. Everybody blames it on Sandy. I haven't been out running boats and all, but I mean, that's they kind of
where have
disappeared
these
after
bluefish
that.
gone?
I'll tell you a story. And the big story is what bluefish, they're changing their habits. Last year, I went to go pick a big owl in Point Pleasant. It was on a Voyager tilefish trip in May. I get on the boat and everything, and I'm looking, and it totes this jumbo bluefish that were like, wow, did you just buy them in the store? No, we caught that on a tilefish trip. Wait a minute, did you stop and jig these? He says, no, these were caught in 700 foot of water on our tilefish rigs. What? Wait, on the bottom? Yes. I was talking to a commercial guy out of Jersey. They had a wake in May in the Hudson Canyon when the amount of bluefish that came through there, they couldn't set their tilefish gear. It was crazy. And they've seen this, went through the summer and everything like that, where one of the Barnegat gill netters, they call him the Terminator, couldn't catch a bluefish. They never came inshore. They took another migratory pattern coming up in the spring, and they did the same thing in fall. Montauk saw a couple of fish in September, and they disappeared. It's just the nature of the species. They do different things. Instead of running the beach, they are running offshore, just the routes they take. We've seen this pattern. It's getting more extreme. It could be with all this climate change with the waters warming and everything. Thing with bluefish, bait. Bluefish also is one of these fish can tolerate some wide water temperature ranges. The species, maybe it's a little down. It's probably on a little down decline and everything. But the fish are definitely offshore. Commercial guys tell them they're off there all the time. I could tell you one thing to watch. If people want to know how rare fish is, look at the wholesale prices at the Hunt Point Market. This season, guys were getting paid for cocktail blues. Oh, cocktail blue? $1.60 a pound. Jumbo bluefish? Over $2 a pound.
Wow.
We know Montauk fishermen were sending in jumbo scup. They would get this settlement, and a guy would be scratching his head. Jumbo scup, which was a premium fish, he was getting 75 cents a pound, and his settlement for the jumbo bluefish over 10 pounds was over $2. They were very rare. The fish never came close to shore. And again, they call it availability and access. There wasn't availability and access. They weren't close to shore. These fish are offshore. We never saw them here. They had a tough year for Massachusetts. And if you want to know where bluefishing is affected, Massachusetts, if you see bluefish down over there, there's something going on with the stock. It's low. It's definitely on a decline and everything else. I think it's just the nature of the species. They cycle up and they cycle down, which has happened a number of times in the last 60 years.
Yeah, Nikki said about it. Nikki told me that there was been a few years ago that didn't happen. But it's funny because you talk going back that you say about like working deck and then running a boat, and for me personally, just working deck to running a boat, you learn the pattern of these fish. They were so routine for them to disappear. It's very fun. It's real funny. I could, if they were still around like they were, you could put me behind the wheel of a boat any time of year. I would have a pretty good idea of where they were. I feel like I could find them, but now they're gone. I mean, they had such a routine pattern. You knew exactly where they would be, in the ocean. And I've talked to you about that before, something about ocean blue fishing. It's a lost trade. It's something different. I mean, party boat fishing, it's a lost trade. Any kid that's coming up now, I mean, there's no more bluefish boats left to be taught that. Anything off besides fluking, sea bass, black fishing, wreck hopping, stuff like that. That's it's still available to learn, but that trade of offshore bluefish and how to fish for them, there's nobody else to teach that, unfortunately. Maybe if they come back and everything, regs are real high, you talk about the bluefish, that was the goose that laid the golden egg. Everybody, fished for them, and everybody went fishing for them. And it's another thing lost, man, because if that Brooklyn's gone, there's nobody else doing it. Nobody's going out in the daytime, going out looking for bluefish. Maybe they will. If they show up, maybe somebody will do it. But it's a lost trade, man. Unfortunately, finding those things. Looking on the bottom, different places. If you didn't find them, all different pieces of the bottom, be surprised. Precision anchoring was huge. People don't realize that. But you could, if you're not on that piece of bottom where those fish are, and you bring them up, you could be 100 feet away, and that guy's not catching anything. I've seen it with my own two eyes. It's amazing. People take it for granted, and a lot of people don't know about it. That's another thing. But to get off, such a bluefish.
Keith brought up, I think, one of the best topics sitting here today about bluefish and everything else. And I really, Keith nailed it. He just said something. If people got to walk away with something about bluefish, it was taken for granted. It was called a calendar fish. We knew when it arrived and everything else, and he
Mother's
stuck
Day.
around. Mother's Day was like bluefishing. You're bluefishing and everything else. We are seeing a commercial fisherman at Shinnecock told me what they're seeing, their impression with bluefish. It's called herding. They come in a large herd. My God, you could throw a pipe wrench in the water with a hook on it and catch bluefish. But when they leave, there's nothing. There's zero. We don't see. They disappear and everything
Where
like
do you
that.
find them? Now you got to know where they are.
You gotta-
Anybody could catch them with, following birds around.
Yeah.
Trolling around.
That's
going
right.
around finding them. But now if they're not around, you know where to go, where are they? You got to look on pieces of bottom. You got to know their migration pattern. In the middle of July when they would leave our inshore waters, they'd come in, we jig them, we get them on pieces of bottom maybe in the early June. July, they go offshore. Now you're in, Nicky used to call God's country. It'd be out in open bottom, 150 feet of water, 200 feet of water, out in the mud hole. You got to find the school. That was a lot of fun. You find them 170 feet of water, you jig them. But sometimes they weren't around. You just got to look for them. Look at the guy from yesterday. Where did he catch them? Find that area. You start seeing their pattern. And then they would come back. And then they would start, getting on pieces of bottom. There was a time nobody was catching them. Murphy found them on the Bronx Queen. We fished there. He knew exactly what it was. This is a man, who's been doing it a long time. Nobody was catching these things. He said, let's go anchor up over there. Anchored up over there. Put sinkers on everybody. Sure as shit, there they were. It's an older guy with the knowledge of where those fish are, and it's pretty cool. The hunt. I miss the hunt of finding those things.
Victor, again, Keith's bringing up some excellent points, and you're talking Book and Fishing Club and the club itself. It's basically teaching, getting people together, to become better fishermen. I want to catch more fish. I want to know how to catch fish when it's tough. Bluefishing taught two things to the captains and to the people. First, the captains, which Keith brought up. Bluefish is an open water fish. And Keith said, it's easy to find them when the birds are up. Oh, there's the birds and everything else. Try to find them when they're down below and everything. Find a piece of bottom. Running down to all these areas, the farms, the HA, Humpty Dumpty, the slough.
Tournament bottom.
Right, tournament bottom.
Grounds.
Right, Three Sisters. It taught captains open water fishing. It's a skill. It's very important. People take for granted bluefish. Oh, easy. Oh, that's nothing. Just the opposite. Bluefish, it takes a lot. It was back in the day. There was a lot of boats, so people would find them and everything. Somewhere you go here, you go there. It's gone. If we're losing people who have this, it's a skill set to learn. Bluefish is not to be taken for granted. And that leads me to my second point. It's the fishermen on the deck. Bluefish taught fishermen something very important. How to fight a big fish that does crazy things among a number of anglers, how to cast properly, how to switch from bait to jigs, feeding out lines. Why is that important? Bluefish is basically an entry fish to learn how to tune a fish. How do we feed out lines? How do we work a jig? How do we change up? Is this the right jig? Is this jig too heavy, too light, or something like that? Matching the hatch, right size hooks. That hook's too big. Using wire. This is Al Coley, people like that, Donnelly and Brico. There was all little tricks. I'm not catching bluefish. Your wire's too big. What do you mean? You short on
Cut the wire.
Cut the
Use
wire.
a plain hook. 30-pound test, 20-pound test. Guy with 40 isn't catching them.
Right.
You need 20. But these are things, man. You
Right.
know, and a lot of people, it's a shame that nowadays nobody knows this stuff. You know, there was such a, you know, you'd run a boat, you go over a piece of bottom, you wouldn't see it. All you'd see is over a ledge. If you didn't run over that ledge and see a little bit of readings, those are them though. That little bit of readings over that ledge. You anchor up, make sure you get on that ledge. When you throw 2 anchors out, you sit tight on it, you throw some chum in the water, 15 minutes, all of a sudden you got 10 on. You never knew. But there was just a little tiny bit of readings on the bottom of it. They're all laying there. What the hell they're doing? I don't know, but they were there. You know? It's funny, man. There was a lot of little tricks, like he said, a lot of shallow water fishing. Nicky used to hate fish in the mud because of that.
Talking Nicky No Time?
No, Nick Cannizo,
Blue Sea.
who owned the Blue Sea, used to hate fish in the mud buoy because of those reasons. You know, the people, you'd have to start switching out lines, you know, telling me, cut everybody's leader. I'd go to cut people's leaders, do all types of stuff for the customers so they could catch fish.
So you would say that this is on the verge of becoming a lost art?
Oh yeah. If they don't, you had the guys at nighttime. You still, I mean, there's nobody left in Sheepshead Bay. At least when I was there, it was still the Pastime, the Explorer, us, the Blue Sea, and the Brooklyn. We were still at least going out. Those guys are going at night. In Jersey, you got the Norma K still,
Jamaica.
the Jamaica. You got
Golden Eagle.
Golden Eagle. He's still daytime fishing. The Miss
Gambler.
Belmont Princess. He's still daytime fishing for bluefish. To the south, you had the Miss Barnegat Light.
Yeah.
You know, he'd come up north. You had the Klondike. Who else you got? But nobody to the east. That's another issue. You know, nobody fishes to the east anymore. So you never knew. That was like a whole nother topic. But you never knew what was going on to the east. You know, Nicky always told me, don't turn left at the jetty. We had so much bottom to the south, you don't want to go left.
Yeah.
So, but the Doris May, he's a guy who sold. You know, that family owned that boat since the 70s. You know, the sea bass regs and the bluefish. Those are the, right? Am I right? 2 reasons why that boat sold.
Yep,
You know,
that's right.
Jeff has it now. It's the Voyager. It's a phenomenal boat. You know, going back to boat building. You know, one of the 70s Gulf crafts, which are just phenomenal. But no bluefish, and then the sea bass regs, and a family who built this boat. You know, they sold. You know, and that's how everybody else. You know, a lot of other people else. You know, what do? You got the Brooklyn, the back of Jamaica Bay, porgy fishing.
Yeah.
This boat that was built to go offshore is in Jamaica porgy fishing. Come
Yeah.
on.
I remember being out with Captain Rudy on the Lady L last summer, and he was like, "You see the Brooklyn porgy fishing?
It's terrible.
You know we're in trouble."
It's
He's like,
bad, man.
That's when you know.
It'd be nice to show people that fishery because there's a lot of new fishermen out there. There is. I could see that. There's a lot of old timers, and I'm fairly young, but I was fortunate, to grow up with, that generation. But there was a lot of old timers that, fished, and now they're gone. And now you have a lot of new people, which is great because of social media and everything like that. Fishing's becoming popular again. But a lot of people, you go back to education, a lot of people aren't educated on a lot of the things that, you wish there was. You talk about striped bass regulations maybe going up. Maybe if there was more variety of fish, maybe if we could sea bass fish a little more, guys would go sea bass fishing a little bit more instead of striped bass fishing as much. If the black fishing being closed early in December is crazy, man.
Yeah.
Some of the best days I ever had was, the end of December into the beginning of January. And we can't fish for it anymore.
And then they give us that one bullshit month in April last year. Where
the
nobody
deep water
even caught
black
anything.
fishing, guys don't even know
They
about that
weren't even
deep water
around.
black fishing. Fishing for 100 feet of water for those blackfish.
Yeah.
Because we never get a chance to fish for it anymore, hardly.
Yeah.
It's a lot of lost trade in the industry. It's a shame, that the boats are being sold because even for a kid growing up, it was you got to learn about how to wake up in the morning. You earned your dollar, and if you paid attention, you could do a lot with what you had in front of you, which is the boat, which was a tool. You learned, plumbing, electric, carpentry, metalwork, engine work, and it really gave you a good base on life. There's tons of people who came out of fishing boats who done other things because of that. It was and there's just, I feel bad for the generation that's now. Even rods. Talk about fishing tackle. You look down the rail of a fishing boat, you see everybody fishing the same thing nowadays. A beautiful thing was, custom rods where you get surf blanks and you cut them down to your specs and all different colors and all different types, and even the fishing gear. It's old tackle. A lot of people call me old school in a new era, but hey, it is what it is. I enjoy it. Even the pen fishing reels, the newels, the conversion kits. Everybody was doing something. It was fun. Where you put everything together. You made a custom outfit, a real custom outfit. Not putting I'm not knocking any brand. The phenomenal reels. Avits, the Daiwas out there. They're awesome. They cost a lot of money, and they're awesome tackle. These graphite composite rods, these micro rods, but it's all off the shelf. And you look down the rail, and for me, it was part of fun fishing, was bringing your own tackle, cutting down a blank, wrapping it, making it look like it was yours, getting a reel together, putting it on there, it was yours. And it was, the personality down the rail was different too. Everybody had something different. I used to walk around the deck collecting the fares, looking at the tackle. Oh, that's cool, man. Look at this. Nowadays, everybody kind of has the same thing. It's another thing that's kind of lost, where it's, I feel like party boat fishing, really. The more party boats leave, the more all that stuff is gone.
It's. I want to pick up, because keeps bringing up all these things. And I remember when I was a young kid, Tampa 6, spent a little time on there. One day I go up, and it's a long ride, blue fishing, going out the mud hole. Dennis Miano was the captain. Come upstairs, hey, Dennis, and I'm talking to him. He's putting up with my questions. I'm learning. Back in the 70s. He's talking to me. He's looking at the paper machine. All of a sudden, a dot comes across the paper machine, and he grabs the throttles. He goes, 60 feet, 60 feet. Get downstairs, kid, get downstairs. He says, 60 feet. I says, that dot? He says, that dot. We've been riding for 2.5 hours. He saw one dot on the machine, comes around and everything like that. That dot was a body of bluefish. I'll never forget it. And it impressed me. He was putting up, he was listening to me, 2.5 hours, your mind wanders and everything. He sees one dot when driving along the edge of the mud hole. But this is the whole thing, and I stress this, like the Brooklyn Fishing Club, it's learning. We're trying to learn. And Keith brings up this whole thing about building rods and reels and everything else. If you do not do it, fishing is very tactile. If you do not do it, if you do not experience, it's great to see it on the internet. It's great to read about. History is great to read about. It's knowledge. But fishing is skill that must be taught, but also must be done by the person itself. That's how you learn. And that's what's happening. That's what happened with bluefish. That's why the skills, we see things, tuna fishing, and my goodness, and just tying basic knots. Listen, everything starts somewhere, and I think people seeing things, I can do it. I buy this fancy tackle, and I'm ready to take on the world. I'll tell people right now, unless you have a base of knowledge, it's a shame. It's your loss.
You learned that on party boats.
Right.
Yep.
The party
and there's
boat
no more
guys.
party boats, man.
That was the
You
whole
did.
that was the whole thing. Keith will tell you, the crew fishing. Oh my God, the crew fishes. I'll tell you one thing: the crew fishing taught people. People learn.
Where
There's
the
Keith.
fish- yeah.
He's going down. What depth you going? Watch. Lock it up. Squidding up and everything. Boom. This was part of it, and it's so important. I really, and doing this podcast with you, I one of the things I want to leave with is knowledge. You need knowledge to fish, to become a better fisherman. It's great to read it. It's entertainment. We love it. We love the history. Keith, we love it. But the thing is, you got to get out there and do it. And I'll tell you what, losing blue fishing, it's one of the biggest things. I think it's a detriment to the whole industry up in New York and New Jersey, because we had all these party boats doing it. It taught people how to fish and everything like that. And you see it now. As bad as the tuna fishing is, people don't know what to do. Change out. Keith talked about it. Light a line, switch out, do this. Put a jig on, cast. Know how to work your jig properly. Rig your jig up properly. I mean, these are things where the mates get frustrated, and don't you notice? Don't you bluefish? No, I don't bother with those fish. I tell people you got to start somewhere. That was the fish to start with, was bluefish.
We have enough time for one more question, and I'd like to ask this one as we head out. Where do you guys see Sheepshead Bay in the next 10 years?
I don't want to cut Keith off here, but I'm going to tell you something right now, which I do know. What you see in Sheepshead Bay now, the fishermen will not be included. There's plans by the city. You can go online already with the bike route, which is planned. It's been held up. The community board's held up the bike route down there. It's supposed to be a bike lane, which was not there yet, but it's going to be there. They have some other things with the piers and everything else. Basically, you might lose a couple of fishing piers in the very near future and everything to provide what they call public access. There's also something called the uplink, where they want to bring communities basically up in Park Slope and Greenpoint, parts of Brooklyn, because of the whole big plan of the ferry service. They just put a ferry service to Seagate? Wow, why? Just to bring people there. And Sheepshead Bay is the next point where they're going to have to develop something in there.
Yep.
What we're going to see in Sheepshead Bay? Maybe a couple of fishing boats there. The community's changed. They don't want it. It brings the wrong people. It's dirty. The noise and everything else, traffic, the community's changed, the demographic of people there, they have money. The people there like the water. They necessarily don't like fishing. Fishing in Sheepshead Bay, I always recommend, Keith showed me some pictures in the car. You better take a lot of pictures. I recommend people do that because with the next 5 years, the city has very big plans there, and it's not going to include the fishing boats.
I agree. I think they'll do something with the piers. I think the piers are the next to go because there's no use for them. They're commercial piers. You're not going to get yachts. You're not going to get Chelsea piers. You can't get little boats tied up to them. So what do? Maybe they'll put some ferries there, to berth them overnight. But there ain't fishing boats.
So where does that leave the fishermen?
Out of Sheepshead Bay. The place that, I'm not tooting my neighborhood's horn, but it's a shame because so many boats and, captains came out of that place and they spread out. And the boat building even, where these guys built these boats, they spread out and they're all over the place. Such a historical place is going to become nothing. There's no history books about it. There's no documentaries about it. There's nothing. And people come there. They don't even look across the street. I feel like people walk across there. They don't even look to the right if they're walking, on the short side or the left, whatever which way you're walking. But I think the boats will be gone. For the most part, there'll maybe, like you said, a few boats left. The piers will be gone. Maybe they'll knock them down, fill it in with land. Maybe they'll put something, build on top of them to put real estate as a waterfront restaurant maybe or something like that. But that place, I unless something drastic happens, but what else are you going to do? Fishing boats ain't coming. Nobody's building boats anymore. Nobody's building fishing boats. That's a lost trade, lost thing. And there's no, they don't want the dinner boats there. So that's out. So
I feel like they want the dinner boats less than the fishing boats, probably, because they bring a wild crowd every night.
I feel like they use the fishing boats as a scapegoat. I've been to some of the meetings years ago. The guys would say, "Oh, this is a fishing community. What are you doing to help the fishermen?" This is something I brought up with them years ago when I brought up about the fish selling. I said, "You guys keep talking about the fish. Why don't you help us out with this?" Nothing ever happened. So they did. In my opinion, I think it's just good for words, and they care about the fishermen. But once they're gone, it's better off. Now they got some. So, but that's what I think.
I could leave you with this, Victor, and it's the city has plans where they're going to make it what they call open public plaza. The main concern of the community, one is the noise, but also the traffic. They need parking, and the piers, the access to the piers will provide them if they fill them in with parking and everything else. That's they're addressing the concerns of the people there. The people there want something different. They like the water.
Yeah.
They just don't like the fishing boats there. It's going to change, and it's going to change within the next couple of years because they have all these plans for ferry service. The highways are congested. They have a ferry service. This is all part. It's already. This is not in the theory stage. This is on paper.
Yeah.
And I tell people, I says, I'd be very careful making any investments in Sheepshead Bay. Why? You have some very big real estate people, very large money real estate people, I should say. That's what's going to happen. As far as the fishing boats, people just go other places. We've lost that many people. Hey,
When they go, they go. Once they're gone, they can't kick us out, but
Right.
they'll eventually leave. They'll leave eventually. They'll run out of business. And once they're gone, then we could do. That's my opinion. Like you said, big real estate. Look what's going on in all up the East River. Anything that's on the water is worth big money. So why don't we travel, see where else we can make money? Sheepshead Bay, it's on the water. Look, they built that big condo over there. You can see that thing all the way down to Avenue M. You don't think they'll do more of that? Sure.
I can tell you this. In the last note, you mentioned about the history of Sheepshead Bay. And I mentioned about FDR on the project, the WPA project in 1932 with Sheepshead Bay when they says, we'll fix the piers up for you. That was the first step. It was put on paper and everything else. You always have the piers for fishing boats. Those people are dead. Try to find them. That piece of paper with the charter for Sheepshead Bay for the piers, try to find it in the archives in City Hall. You probably won't. 1989, something else happened in Sheepshead Bay. Keaton should know. They redid the piers in Sheepshead Bay. And there's something in the law. For 6 years, all the city had to do was maintain it, improve it. They got lighting. They have seating. They're providing access for the public. After 6 years, hey, it's the city's. Guess what? You're a tenant. You leased a spot on the piers. When your lease comes up, hey, Mr. Tenant, we don't have to renew it anymore. Try to find someplace else now. It's all changing down there. We try to warn people. It's the canary in the coal mine. We tell people it's going to change. It's happening all along the line. And guess what? Not only the city, you have something else against you. Demographics. Young people are not fishing anymore. Less and less people fish. I tell people, watch out. 10 years? You're going to see a lot of change in 10 years. Believe me.
Thanks a lot for coming tonight, guys. Really appreciate both of you showing up and sharing your wealth of knowledge with us and all of our listeners. Kind of a dismal way to end it, but it's the reality.
Hey, just
you know,
you know what? You want positive? Keep going party boat fishing. Try to
Yeah.
learn from the old timers.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, don't go out to Montauk. Go fishing in Brooklyn.
You can go.
You know,
Yeah, man, keep going out. Keep trying to learn. See what the guys are doing. See what the mates are doing. Keep trying to improve yourself, and keep trying to look outside the box of what everything else is going on, and just enjoy it while it's here, whatever's here. And if the bluefish show up, go blue fishing.
yeah.
Learn how to do it. That's right. Ocean blue fishing. Hopefully it's something to do again.
Well, thank you guys for coming. I would love to do a part 2 of this. I feel like almost, we just scraped the tip of the iceberg especially in terms of the history of the bay. I feel like there's a lot more that we could talk about.
You got to
there.
get one of the old timers. They'll tell you the real stories. You got to get some of the guys that were around back then, some of the boat owners.
Yeah,
We'll try to do that next time, Victor. And thank you very much.
no problem. Thank you guys. Tight lines, everybody.